In today's story, we dive into the life of Samuel Riley, a man who thought he'd left his troubled past behind, only to find it catching up with him in the most unexpected ways. After fleeing from betrayal and heartbreak, Samuel builds a new life in a quiet town. But when old faces reappear, bringing dark secrets and dangerous schemes, Samuel is forced to confront the past he tried so hard to escape. Get ready for a tale of resilience, revenge, and redemption as we uncover the twists and turns of Samuel's journey. Stay tuned, you won't want to miss this one. I can still picture the day I left Summit Creek like it was yesterday. Crisp fall morning, air thick with the smell of leaves burning. I loaded up my old truck with everything that mattered, ready to put as much distance as I could between me and all the hurt. Leaving was tough, but what choice did I have? Wanda and Tammy's betrayal had poisoned everything. The only way to heal was to get away from them and start over. After hours on the road, I found this sleepy little town. Seemed like the perfect place to lay low. Folks were friendly enough, the pace was slow, and the town had a certain charm. Found a rundown gas station and garage that had been on the market forever. Took a chance, made a lowball offer, and wouldn't you know it, they bid. That place became my fresh start, the foundation for rebuilding my life and my business. One Saturday afternoon, I was sitting in my usual booth at the Rusty Mug, trying to enjoy a little peace and quiet. That tavern had become my sanctuary those first few years. Shortly after I landed in town, I bought the local gas station and repair shop, got it for a steal because it had been sitting empty for so long. Figured it was the perfect spot to make a clean break from the past. First thing I did was build a big retail space facing the road. The only grocery in town closed at 7 p.m., so I saw a need and filled it. Moved the gas pumps so they were visible from the store, which left me with plenty of parking. Turns out folks did their shopping late. The store was hopping from 7 p.m. to midnight, open 24/7. Kept the garage in the back open regular hours, 8 to 5, 5 days a week, plus I'd take on special projects on Saturdays. The Mug wasn't too thrilled when I started selling beer and liquor, but it brought in good money and gave folks some much-needed jobs. Business was booming, especially after this woman I hired helped me rearrange the store. Paid off the loan in no time, had to double the staff just to keep up with the Friday and Saturday night crowds. We sold a ton of junk food to the bar crowd, and Sundays were all about the ice-cold beer, priced just right. I was nursing a double Jack Daniels with water and a lemon, fresh off finishing a steering column replacement on a vintage truck. Family heirloom. Took me 8 months to find the part and fabricate the right fixtures. This guy's family had been driving this truck since the 40s. He'd probably be buried in it if he had his way. 4 to 7 was the sweet spot at the Mug. Most of the regulars had already had dinner, and in a couple of hours, the place would be packed with the after-dinner crowd and the live music would start. Farmers would bring their daughters in, looking for some after-work fun. 6, going on 7 years I'd been in this town. Built myself a good reputation, made a lot of friends. These folks looked out for each other, keeping their ears to the ground. If something was up, I'd hear about it. That's why I liked coming to the Mug once a week, always on Saturday, for a drink before heading home. It was my time to unwind, gather my thoughts. Then I saw them walk in. I wish I hadn't. Ruined a perfectly good evening. It was Wanda's twin sister, and the kid with her used to be my son. Brought back a whole mess of memories I'd rather forget. You live with evil long enough, you stop seeing it for what it is. The boy was all grown up now, and looking more and more like his real daddy every day. Proof that the truth always has a way of coming out. What in the world were they doing here, looking for me? They had a little chat with Jake, the bartender, showed him a picture, then headed out. I was grateful for my scraggly beard and long hair. Along with the weight I'd lost, I didn't look much like my old self. Nobody recognized me. Good thing too, because the note I'd sent them just said, "Come home when you can." About half an hour later, Jake came over, took a seat at my table. "What did they want, Jake?" "Just wanted to give you a message. Heard a rumor you were living around here, came to check it out." "Uh-huh. They said a woman named Wanda is dying. Cancer. I want to make peace. Asked if I knew you, showed me your picture. I played dumb, of course." "Who were they? What did they really want?" I lit up a cigarette, ripped the filter off just out of habit. "Said her name was Tammy? The woman, I mean." Said the young guy was your son. You think they were telling the truth? From the way they were acting? I'd say they're being straight with you, mostly. But they're definitely hiding something. Something big. Jake headed back to the bar, and I sat there, stewing. Wanda and her sister, always putting on a good show, acting all innocent while they stabbed you in the back. My mind went back to that day, almost 7 years ago, when I walked out. Told them I wouldn't be back for another 7. They laughed, thought I was bluffing. They learned their lesson that day. Haven't seen or heard from me directly since. Didn't believe I was serious. Though I was just sore about their little joke. They had no clue. No clue that I'd found out our youngest wasn't even mine. Found out he was my brother-in-law's kid. That's what sent me packing. Started this whole journey. One of Wanda's relatives, someone who'd seen those 2 witches in action one too many times, she'd warned me. Called them black magic, pure evil. Said they were playing with fire. Turns out, she wasn't lying. A week before I left, I found an insurance policy. Wanda had taken it out on me. $4 million payout if I died accidentally. Double indemnity. The writing was on the wall. Like that old woman told me. Run, son, and don't look back. And that's just what I did. Packed up my work truck, they didn't even notice, and drove until I hit the state line. My work truck was already loaded with everything I could fit, everything I wanted to salvage from those 16 years. I drove without looking back, putting 2 states between me and Summit Creek. Truth be told, I shared some of the blame. Got Wanda pregnant when she was just 16, I was barely 18. My folks, they pushed me to do the right thing, marry her. Next thing I know, we've got 2 more kids. They all thought it was a big joke, the whole town did. Wanda, she told my girls. Oh, your daddy's just blowing off steam. He'll be back, you'll see. Just needs to get his sense of humor back. A few hours later, the sheriff's car pulls up at the house. Wanda answers the door, all smiles. Mrs. Riley? The deputy asks. That's me, she says. Ma'am, you've been served. She laughed, thought it was hilarious, until she opened that envelope. Turns out, I'd filed for divorce. No second thoughts. Even Ellie, Jenna's grandma, told me she nearly fainted when she heard. My lawyer, he didn't mess around. Listed every asset, every penny we owed. Included the DNA report proving Shane wasn't mine, proving Wanda had been sleeping with Gary for over a year. Divorce papers had all the receipts, the photos, every filthy detail from their little motel rendezvous. And to top it off, a letter informing them I was suing Gary for child support, alienation of affection, the whole 9 yards. That's when the laughter stopped. Joke wasn't on me anymore. They thought I was just a moneymaker, that I'd crawl back. Said everything I touched turned to gold. Well, they weren't wrong about that. Wanda and the kids were spoiled rotten. Never wanted for anything. She had a coronary when she found out I'd sold off 3 of our businesses, paid down every debt we had, and sold our 2 apartment buildings. For a profit, of course. Cancelled every credit card, took my name off the bank accounts. Signed my half of the house over to her, free and clear. Took my half of what was left in cash, which dropped their monthly income from 10 grand to 0 overnight. Wanda and her sister, they learned the hard way. Don't bite the hand that feeds you. My lawyer, he'd frozen their assets before they even got served, so they were flat broke. After it was all final, he called Wanda in. Handed her a check. What's this? She asked, suspicious. He wanted you to have this. The lawyer said. It's about a quarter of what you lost. He said it was never about the money, it was about the principle. He hopes this gives you a chance to start over, maybe learn from your mistakes. Wanda refused to sign the final papers unless I was there. Didn't see the point. She'd lied to my face for years. Why would I want to talk to her now? So, legally separated, but not officially divorced. Didn't matter much to me. She had to get a real job for the first time in her life. Figured she'd learn pretty quickly how fast money disappears without a steady income. I had my lawyer send all my mail to a P.O. box, then he'd forward it to me at the shop once a week. Figured it was only a matter of time before Wanda and Tammy came sniffing around, looking for payback. Those 2, manipulation and revenge, were their specialties. Deep down, I knew they'd come calling eventually. It wasn't a matter of if, but when. They're kind, they don't just let things go. My absence, it was eating at them. The longer I was gone, the worse it would get. They wouldn't let me off easy. I thought I'd finally gotten away clean. But Tammy's showing up, that told me the game was back on. I finished my drink, tossed a few bills on the table, and slipped out the back door of the mug. Didn't want to risk them watching the front. Cut through the empty lot behind the bar. Circled around the block to where I'd parked my truck. Just as I was unlocking the door, I heard a voice. "You're a hard man to track down, Mr. Samuel Riley, I presume?" "You got that right," I said, turning around. "Name's Mark Edwards. Your oldest daughter, Cassie, she's my wife." "Well, ain't that something? Could be good news, could be bad. She take after her mama?" "So, what brings you here?" I asked. "Came to find you. Some things need to be settled." "That they would, if your mother-in-law would just sign the damn papers." "What papers?" he asked, confused. I told him to follow me. Drove us out of town, down a long dirt road, and ended at my farmhouse. Led him to my home office, showed him the divorce papers. Let him make some copies. Didn't need him knowing this wasn't where I actually lived. Built this place for Ellie, hoping one day she'd move out of that old house. Mark was a decent-looking guy. Confident, educated. Hard to figure if he was on the level, or if this was some scheme cooked up by Wanda and Tammy. He used my Wi-Fi to pull up some files on his laptop. I kept all the important stuff backed up there, plus had hard copies in a safe deposit box, just in case. He was especially interested in the sheriff's report Wanda signed when she got served with the divorce papers. Even managed to print out a letter from Wanda's lawyer, pretty damning stuff. Admitted they'd agreed to the property split, but Wanda was refusing to finalize without meeting me face to face. As he was working, I watched him. Saw the realization dawn on his face. The paperwork, it didn't match up with what he'd been told. "Think Cassie knows?" he finally asked. "That's between you and her. But let me ask you something. This whole Wanda's dying bit. Who told you that?" "Tammy. She and Shane told the bartender that today. But Wanda's not sick. Not that I know of, anyway. She's living with her lawyer now. Common law deal. They're expecting a baby." "Common law?" "Yeah, she's the one who put me up to finding you. Said she needed to finalize the divorce so she could get remarried." He pulled out his phone, dialed a number, and put it on speaker. "Hey, honey, are you there? Cassie, did you know your mama lied about the divorce? About it not being final?" "What are you talking about? Mom told us Dad cleaned us out, took everything, then skipped town. Said if it hadn't been for Gary." "I'm sending you the legal file," Mark interrupted. "Read it, then call me back, ASAP. We need to talk." I grabbed a couple of buds from the fridge, popped the caps, and handed one to him. "Why didn't you tell Cassie you found me?" I asked. "Well, Cassie and we've only been married a couple of years. Just had our first kid 3 months ago. I'm not telling anyone I found you. Not yet, anyway. Everyone thinks I'm just working a case." He pulled out his badge, flashed it at me. Summit Creek PD. I pulled up their website on my laptop, found his picture. He was legit. "It was that accident report, a few months back. That's what led me to you. Cassie, she'd filed a missing persons report. Said you disappeared. Got forwarded to the state police, whole 9 yards. Then the insurance company contacted me. Said there was a ruling in your favor. Wanted to make sure they had your current contact info." "So why didn't you tell her, Mark? Tell Cassie you found me?" I asked again. "When I saw your file, something didn't sit right. Like that $250,000 Wanda was supposed to get, along with the deed to the house, it's just gone. And all the lies, something's going on, Sam. Something stinks." "Yeah, well, I've got a feeling I've been living a lie too," I muttered. Just then, his phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen. "It's my wife. I'm putting you on speaker. Keep your voice down, okay?" "Hey, babe." Cassie's voice filled the room. "Where did you get all this? Tell me this is for real. We've been lied to for years? Shane, he doesn't even know who his real dad is. Neither do I. Kara's gonna flip when she hears this. Mom's gonna. Don't you dare defend him. Another voice cut in, sharp and angry. Wanda, no doubt. He abandoned us, took everything and ran. We would have been on the streets if Gary hadn't. Mom, shut up. Cassie snapped. This changes everything. You and Aunt Tammy, you've been playing dad this whole time. Manipulating him. But what's got me is, you wouldn't sign the divorce papers. What the hell is going on? It's true, Cassie. I got the information straight from your father's lawyer, well, his widow. Had to go out of state to find her. Seems her husband kept copies of everything. Paperwork shows your mother was served with the divorce papers the same day your dad left. I scribbled a note on a notepad. Talk to Eleanor. ASAP. Cassie, honey, you need to talk to your great Aunt Ellie. See if she's still around. She might be able to shed some light on all this. Mark nodded, catching my eye. Mark, we have to find my dad. He deserves to know. Deserves to be free of Mom and her schemes. At least let him finalize the divorce. Why did she sell the house? It was supposed to be hers. The more I learn, the more questions I have. Why is she planning to sue him for desertion? What is she hiding? As soon as she finds him. Cassie, listen, ask Kara to watch the baby for a little while longer. You need to talk to your Aunt Ellie. Tell her what we found. Maybe she'll open up. This has to stay between us for now, okay? Looks like there could be some serious fraud going on here. Why would your mother lie about your dad all these years? Exactly. And that $250,000 vanished. Like it never existed. Once it got to your dad's lawyer, poof. Gone. Cassie, don't say anything to Kara just yet. If the DA gets involved, better to keep this quiet. Mark got up, headed for the kitchen. I figured he needed a minute. Why do you want Cassie to talk to Ellie? I asked when he came back with 2 glasses of iced tea. Ellie? Oh, you mean Eleanor. She was the one who, well, she knew about Wanda and Gary. Collected all the proof. She never married, but she practically raised Wanda's kids like they were her own. Single motherhood. It changed her perspective. She always believed Wanda and Tammy were in cahoots, using Gary and using me. But what their endgame was, she never figured that part out. If she knew all that, why didn't she? Her granddaughter, Jenna, she wants Ellie to come live with her. But Ellie, she's stubborn. Said she wasn't leaving until the truth came out. Jenna, she visits her whenever she can. Brings her 2 boys. But yeah, Jenna keeps to herself mostly. Those 2, Wanda and Tammy, they suck the life out of you. Use people up, toss them aside. I didn't really get it, not until Ellie showed me what she knew. You gonna ask me about my kids before you go? I asked, curious. Not until I know for sure you're who you say you are, Sam. No offense, but this could all be part of their game. And look, about your lawyer, the accident, something about that doesn't sit right either. If Wanda's planning to sue you, what makes her think she can win? The color drained from Mark's face as the pieces fell into place. Poor guy. He had no idea the kind of family he'd married into. We talked for a while longer, agreed to trust each other, at least enough to swap numbers. He promised to keep me in the loop. I walked him out, shook his hand. Stay safe, Mark, I said. Once he was gone, I locked up the farmhouse, then took the long way back to my place. Needed time to think. Life is good now. Did I really want to drag all that ugliness back up? But knowing Wanda and Tammy, they wouldn't stop until they got what they wanted. And I had a feeling they'd stop at nothing to get it. As soon as I walked through the door, 2 little bodies slammed into my legs, giggling. I scooped up my boys, 3 and 4 years old. Jenna's kids. My kids. The lights of my life, every bit as mischievous as their mama. Yeah, life was good. Dinner's almost ready, Jenna called from the kitchen. I went to wash up, then joined her and the boys at the table. Over dinner, I told her about my day, about the visit from Cassie's husband. Couldn't believe how things had turned out. When I left Summit Creek, almost 7 years ago, I made Ellie a promise. Told her I'd call every Sunday, let her know I was okay. And I did. Then, about 1.5 years ago, she called me, asked for a favor. Said Jenna, you needed help. Said your marriage had gone south, you needed a fresh start, a safe place to land. I didn't know much about you back then, just that you were younger, no kids, living on base somewhere. But Ellie, I owed her. Jenna smiled. So you rescued me from my miserable life? Something like that, I said. Took me a week to find a decent apartment. Small town, 2 bedrooms, furnished it the best I could. Wasn't easy on short notice, I had to call in a few favors. When you showed up to get me, I'd quit my job, cleaned out my bank accounts, and had everything packed. Travis was about to ship out again, he'd just finished basic training. You were so quiet, pulled up in that rented U-Haul around 8 p.m. We loaded up everything I wanted, your friends helped. 4 hours later, we were gone. You wouldn't tell me anything about yourself, where we were going. Safety first, right? Right. Late that night, you got a call. Remember? From Ellie. I'll never forget it. Jenna laughed. Grandma, Art picked me up. You're kidding. He did? Well, you could have warned me. He's kind of a mess. Like a wild man. A hot wild man, maybe, if he ever shaved or got a haircut. She wasn't wrong, I said, grinning. Next day, Ellie called my lawyer, had all my legal documents sent to your P.O. box. I warned you about Travis, said he could be unpredictable. Especially once he found out I was gone. He wasn't too happy about it. That's why Ellie had to get that restraining order. He was calling non-stop, threatening all kinds of things. Ended up getting himself dishonorably discharged. Moved back to Summit Creek, thought you'd run back to him. Poor, dumb Travis. You know, everyone in town thought that ring was real. That I was your mail-order bride. That I'd tamed the wild man. You did good at the store, Jenna. Real good. Better with people than I ever was. It's what I do. Plus, your customers love the new system. No more long lines on Friday nights. She winked. Not that I didn't enjoy seeing you sweat every time we had a rush. Funny, I grumbled. Oh, come on, Sam. It was cute. You really didn't know, did you? Know what? Jenna smiled. You'll figure it out. Jenna started bringing me lunch at the store on Saturdays. Said I was working myself to the bone, forgetting to eat. She was right. I'd lost some weight, but hadn't really noticed until folks started commenting. It just felt natural, as being together. Everyone in town assumed we were a couple. Ellie kept us updated on things back in Summit Creek. Said Wanda was furious that Travis had gotten himself kicked out of the army, blaming me for it, naturally. Said he and Tammy had gotten chummy. Made me wonder what those two were up to. The day Jenna's divorce was finalized, we went out to celebrate with some friends at the Mug. One slow dance, under the dim lights, that was all it took. Our first kiss. 6 months later, we moved in together. One Saturday night, I was giving the boys a bath. Jenna had bought me a shaving kit for Christmas, a beautiful porcelain bowl and a badger brush, the real deal. The boys were fascinated by it. I lathered up my face, then theirs, just for fun. They were giggling like crazy when Jenna walked in. Well, look who's hiding under all that scruff. Boys, doesn't Daddy look more like Sam now? She teased, kissing me on the cheek. Cut it. Both boys shouted, pointing at my hair. I told you what would happen. I said to Jenna, laughing. I'll let the barber handle it. Monday morning, first thing. Nope, I'm doing it, right now, before you chicken out. She dried the boys off, got them into their pajamas. They sat at the kitchen table, big-eyed, as Jenna pulled out her scissors. By the time she was done, I barely recognized myself in the mirror. You're amazing, I whispered, pulling her close. She shooed me off to wash the stray hairs off while she cleaned up. Ellie called while Jenna was cleaning up. Said Cassie had just left. Jenna figured Ellie was finally ready to confront Wanda and Tammy, and set the record straight. Turned out, Cassie had learned about the annuities I'd set up minus $600 a month for each of the kids. They'd never seen a dime. The next week was interesting. Everyone had something to say about my new look. Jenna, she got a kick out of it. What did you do, Jenna? Blackmail him? Mel, the owner of the diner, asked one morning. Jenna just laughed. He promised he'd shower at least 3 times a week. That's the best I could do. Most folks got a good laugh out of it. Others, well, let's just say it was amusing to see who got all high and mighty when they thought they had the upper hand. The high and mightiness didn't last long. The mailman, even though he thought it was funny, hand-delivered the news. I was getting sued. Child abandonment, desertion, backchild support, the whole shebang. Jenna and we just laughed. Figured Wanda hired some bottom feeder who'd sick a collection agency on me. Problem was, they didn't know where to look. Turns out, it wasn't some 2-bit lawyer. The DA caught wind of it, decided to look into things himself. Hired a real shark to represent me, pro bono. Figured he could use my case to expose what was going on in Summit Creek. Mark, he called with an update. They've been skimming the annuities, Sam. $48,000 from each kid, so far. And the DA, he's reopening the case on your lawyer's death. The accident? They're not so sure it was an accident anymore. Thinking maybe arson too, considering what happened to his office that same night. And Travis? I asked. He's a person of interest. If this pans out, Wanda and Tammy, they're looking at 7 to 10 years. Minimum. And Wanda's lawyer? He'll lose his license for sure. My lawyer, the one the DA hired, told me to stay put. The less I knew, the better. He was building a case against them, and they didn't suspect a thing. We had a few weeks of peace, then Ellie called. Sunday night. Art, they're filing papers tomorrow. I just know it. Her voice was tight with worry. She forwarded me everything she'd collected over the years. Affidavits, recordings. Buried in the pile of documents was something interesting, a $2 million accidental death policy. Taken out on me, 6 months before I left. Jenna did some digging, figured out Wanda used some of the money from the apartment buildings to pay the premiums. We spent half the night forwarding everything to the DA. This is it, Jenna. They're setting me up, luring me back. First thing Monday morning, Jenna was on the phone with the lawyers Mark recommended. By noon, we'd chosen one, wired him a retainer, and sent him all the paperwork. He said to sit tight, they'd handle it. Wanda wanted to play games? Fine, but we were playing for keeps. Friday morning, Jenna took a call, her face pale. It's Ellie. She's on her way. Has Cassie and Kara with her. Said they left last night, stayed at a motel down the road. Something's up, Sam. This was it. Things were moving faster than we'd planned. We decided to close up shop for the weekend, spend some time with family. Figured we could use the distraction. Around 7 p.m., 2 cars pulled up, a Ford Explorer and an Escape. Jenna squeezed my hand, her eyes wide with worry. Who's that with Ellie? She whispered. My truck was tucked away in the garage, so they didn't know I was home. That's Mark, Cassie, and the baby. Kara's with them too. You ready for this? As I'll ever be. Jenna took my son's hand, and we all went outside to greet them. Kara, she burst into tears the second she saw me. I handed my little guy off to Ellie, then pulled my daughter into a hug. Cassie handed her son to Mark and joined us. My girls, they'd grown into beautiful young women. Seeing them together, it was something else. Good to see you, Mark, I said, shaking his hand. Once everyone was settled, Jenna served up a feast, roast beef, mashed potatoes, gravy, the works. Yorkshire pudding, even. She went all out. After the kids were in bed, we gathered around the table, got down to business. Sam, is it okay if I call you Dad? Mark asked. Sure, son, go ahead. The DA, he thinks Travis's car was involved in your lawyer's accident. They're doing a paint comparison. If it's a match, they're going to charge him with manslaughter. That fire at the lawyer's office? Definitely arson. They have him on security footage, lurking around in the background that night. Everyone was silent, letting it sink in. Wanda and her lawyers, they sealed the divorce records. Figured that way, nobody would know the truth. They filed the lawsuit against you this week. Jenna started to cry. I'm so sorry, Sam, she whispered. I thought you were being overprotective, making me move all the way out here, asking all those questions about my family. Now I get it. You knew. You knew what they were capable of. They were served with your lawsuit on Thursday, Art, Ellie added. They must have figured out we were onto them, that we were talking to you. We were worried they'd come after Jenna. That's why we came here, so suddenly. We got your room all set up, Grandma, Jenna said. You just need to bring your clothes. I bought most of mine in the car. Cassie's shipping the rest. The antiques too, Ellie said, her voice firm. Gave her power of attorney, told her to sell the house, the furniture. Time to leave Summit Creek, for good. I'll drive back with Mark and Cassie. We can rent a truck, haul everything out. It's time. I said, my voice tight. Time for what? Mark asked. Time to see if our suspicions are right. That lawsuit? It's bait. They want to reel me in. With that $2 million insurance policy, double indemnity for accidental death. Well, I think my lawyer's accident was just a test run. Mark, Cassie, Kara, Ellie, they all stared at me, their faces pale. They were planning to kill you, Dad? Cassie whispered. I smiled, a chill running down my spine. Knew it in my gut, even back then. Even my lawyer, he didn't believe it at first. But he found out soon enough. The hard way. Mark excused himself, said he needed to make some calls. Gave me a chance to catch up with my daughters, with Jenna. She dug up some old photos of me, back when we first met. The girls got a kick out of them. Said they wouldn't have recognized me. When Mark came back, the room went quiet. He looked grim. They're bringing Wanda in. After the holiday. They can hold her for 48 hours before they have to charge her. 3 counts of grand theft, for the annuities. DA's gonna slow walk the process. Make sure she doesn't get a bond hearing right away. He looked at me. Sam, if you could fly on Wednesday. Rent a U-Haul, make some appearances, those old haunts of yours. Word gets around fast. Tell anyone who asks, you're just there to pack up Ellie's stuff. That way, when Wanda gets word, and she will, they'll plant someone in holding with her. When she makes a move, we'll be ready. Jenna's eyes were wide. Wait, you're using my children's father as bait? To lure out my ex-husband? What kind of guarantee do I have that Sam doesn't get hurt? I met her eyes. She knew, without a doubt, that I was going to do this. Damn you, you'd do it, wouldn't you? Without a second thought. She knew me too well. Art's always been like that, honey, Ellie said, her hand on Jenna's arm. That's why I called him in the first place. To get you away from Travis. He never asks anyone to do something he wouldn't do himself. And right now, he wants to get rid of those witches as much as we do. My only fear is him walking into danger. Jenna said, but there was a smile playing on her lips. She knew there was no stopping me. If Art was a boxer, he'd be a world champ. Fast on his feet, even faster with his brain. Wanda and Tammy, they don't have a clue what's coming. Ellie said, her voice full of confidence. Relax, ladies. I'm in good hands. Mark's got my back. And besides, if anything happens to me, he's gotta answer to my daughter. Isn't that right, Mark? Mark just nodded. We all knew this was risky. But I was going back to Summit Creek. Later that night, while the women were talking, Mark pulled me aside. The DA, he thinks Travis will make a move the second he hears you're in town. He's furious with you, Sam. Blames you for Jenna getting away, for losing his precious army career. And they're going to make sure Wanda knows I'm back? First thing Thursday morning. Mark confirmed. Question is, if Travis gets spooked, if he thinks we're onto him, will he crack? Will he give them up to save his own skin? What do you think, based on his military record? I asked. Travis? He always took the fall. Follower, not a leader. My gut says he'll crack. He's only with Wanda and Tammy because they know how to play him. He's easy to manipulate. I drove into Liberty Ridge on Wednesday afternoon. The sign that greeted me hadn't changed much, welcome to Liberty Ridge. Population. 34,848. What it didn't say was that the city council had basically declared themselves exempt from U.S. law. It was the Wild West in here. Justice depended on who you knew, who you paid off. Law-abiding citizens got the short end of the stick, while folks here illegally were practically worshipped. The working class were stuck footing the bill, all to keep wages low and line the pockets of the folks in charge. Turns out, not much had changed in 7 years. Except for a fresh layer of asphalt on Main Street, the place looked exactly the same. Figured I'd start at Mel's Diner. If it was still there, that is. Thankfully, it was. Same old place, just a fresh coat of paint. I pulled the U-Haul into the parking lot, grabbed my jacket, and headed inside. 11:15 a.m. just before the lunch rush hit. I was counting on being recognized. Used to be quite the hotshot businessman around here. Time to let everyone know Sam Riley was back in town. I slid into a booth, picked up a menu. Could practically feel the stares. People whispering, pointing, probably snapping pictures with their phones. A waitress came over, poured me a cup of coffee. "You ready to order, hun?" she asked. "That Wednesday special, the meatloaf, beans, and mashed potatoes, that's still available?" I asked. She gave me a funny look. That's not on the menu. We only do it for. Tell Jake, Sam wants his usual. Brown gravy, extra onions on the meatloaf. She stared at me like I'd sprouted another head. Never mind, I said, getting to my feet. I'll tell him myself. I pushed through the swinging doors, into the kitchen. The waitress was right behind me, spluttering about how customers weren't allowed back here. Jake? I called out. Jake, Mel's son, spun around, a spatula in his hand. His jaw dropped. You old son of a gun. You're a few weeks early. Get your butt over here. Susan, grab Sam's coffee. We have some catching up to do. Jake's dad, he'd been the original owner. Place hadn't changed much when Jake took over. We'd been friends since we were kids. We talked for a while, caught up on old times. He sent one of the waitresses to fetch his wife, and said we needed to talk, privately. Sam, you should know, after you left? My wife, she cut ties with Wanda and Tammy. Completely. Said she didn't like the way they were talking about you. About the girls. Things are about to get messy, Jake. There was supposed to be an arrest last night. If all goes according to plan, this whole thing's gonna unravel pretty quickly. Domino effect. And Cassie's husband, Mark? He's in on this? He's the one who contacted me. That's why I came back early. Mark? He's a good man, Sam. Honest cop. Put away 2 of our city councilmen last year. Corruption charges. They never saw it coming. We'll talk later, Jake. Too many ears around here. Just then, a familiar blue pickup truck pulled into the parking lot. Savannah. She looked great. I waved Jake and his wife back to the front, slid back into the booth, and waited for Savannah to come in. Figured she'd see me from behind, wouldn't think anything of it. She did a double take when she spotted me, then hurried over, her brow furrowed. Jake, what's going on? She asked, her voice low. It's important. I stood up, turned around. Savannah's eyes went wide. She launched herself at me, threw her arms around me so tight I thought I might crack a rib. Whoa, there, little sis. Your big brother's home. It's all right. Took her a minute to settle down. Jake, he shooed everyone else out of the kitchen. Mom and Dad know you're back? Savannah finally asked, her voice choked with tears. Not yet. Better if we keep it that way for now. You're here because Wanda got arrested last night? Yeah, and it's about to get a whole lot worse before it gets better. I'm laying low, at least until I get settled in at Ellie's. Mark's got cops watching the place around the clock. They're saying it wasn't an accident. My lawyer's death. Think it might be connected to that fire at his office. Jake and Savannah exchanged a look. Everyone knew the new DA, the one elected a few years back. He was cleaning house, reopening all those old cases, the ones nobody had been able to close. You're the bait, Sam, Jake said quietly. If I'm right, this whole arson thing, my lawyer, maybe even some of those other unsolved cases, it all goes back to them. To Wanda and Tammy. What's the endgame, Sam? What's it all about? Jake asked, his voice low. I took a deep breath. $2 million. Life insurance. Accidental death. Double indemnity on me. Wanda took it out on me. Was all Savannah could manage. We walked out to my truck. I was about to say goodbye to Savannah when Tammy's car pulled up beside us. "Where are you staying? At Mom's?" Savannah whispered. "Ellie's gonna move all her stuff out to the new place. She wanted to be, well, away from all this." "Ellie's gone? Why?" "She's staying with Jenna, my Jenna, and our 2 boys." I said, grinning. Savannah's jaw hit the pavement. 5 years we've been together. 2 little boys. They just turned 3 and 4. Savannah just shook her head, speechless. How did you and Jenna?" "Long story, but the short version is, Ellie and we stayed in touch. When Jenna needed help getting away from her ex, well, that's where I came in. Moved her in with me, gave her a job. Turns out, her ex, we think he might be the one who killed my lawyer. And torched his office." Do Wanda and Tammy know you know? About everything?" Savannah asked. "Not yet, but they will, soon enough." Tammy got out of her car, stormed right up to us. "Sam, you have to drop it. That lawsuit, the charges against Wanda. They're arresting her, Tammy. As in, hauling her off to jail. Within 48 hours. You don't understand, my lawyer said, those divorce papers? She filed new ones. Claims you deserted her, abandoned your kids, the whole bit. Until the court sorts it out, everything's frozen." "And your point is? How are we supposed to bail her out? We're broke, Sam, you know that. That court order, it freezes everything. Maybe your father could put his house up as collateral. You are his daughters, after all." I said, a hint of malice in my voice. Tammy glared at me, then turned and stalked off. "Their father wants nothing to do with them. Not since he found out about Shane. Said they're just like their mother," Savannah said, shaking her head. I couldn't help but smile. I hugged Savannah, told her to stay safe, then climbed into my truck and drove toward Ellie's house. 3 hours later, I was backing the U-Haul up the long driveway. I sent a quick text to Mark, letting him know I'd arrived. He texted back instantly, everything was quiet. "Ellie's curtains closed?" Ellie had told me to leave them open. Something wasn't right. I checked the doors, made sure everything was locked up tight. Sent another text to Mark, closed. She said to leave them open. A few seconds later, my phone buzzed. Cops might have closed them, just in case. "Be careful, Sam." I took a deep breath, unlocked the front door, and stepped inside. "Mr. Riley?" a voice called out. A young officer, barely old enough to shave, was holding out a cell phone. "Mark Edwards, for you." "Hey, Mark. Sounds like everyone got the memo." "Tammy just left the diner, Sam. Guess who she tried to call? Guess who she told about you being back in town and knowing everything?" "Let me guess. Travis?" "You got it. We've got bugs planted all over that diner. Recorded their whole conversation. She begged you to drop the charges, didn't she? Said she needed to bail Wanda out. She even suggested her own father put up his house to get Wanda out of jail." I chuckled. Like that would ever happen. Then she tried calling Travis. Our informant at the jail. She heard the whole thing. Apparently, Wanda told Tammy to give him your location. Said it would motivate him. "And did she?" "Told him you were staying at, wait for it, your granddaughter's house. Jenna's." My blood ran cold. Not even an hour later, Travis shows up at the diner, asking about Wanda. He asked where she was being held, and I told him that she was at her granddaughter's house. My voice was a low growl. I grabbed my keys. "Mark, I gotta go." I hung up, my heart pounding. I pulled the U-Haul into the garage, unloaded a few stacks of cardboard boxes, and got to work. Didn't want Travis getting suspicious if he happened to drive by. Pizza arrived around 6:30. I gave the delivery guy a tip, told him I was just helping a friend move. Around 11 p.m., I heard a noise at the front door. A metallic scraping sound. He was picking the lock. I stayed put in the kitchen, nursing a cup of coffee. Travis slipped in, a 9mm pistol tucked in his waistband. He spotted me, a smug grin on his face. "Hey there, Art." Wanda and Tammy say, "Hi. I'm here to pay a little visit to Jenna." "Where is she?" "Sorry, Travis. Not gonna happen. Wouldn't tell the guy who killed my lawyer where to find my family. Especially not the guy who burned down his office too. Before you eliminate me." He sneered, using air quotes. "Because we both know that's the plan, right? Tell me, how much did they promise you? What's my life worth? What makes you think I had anything to do with it?" He blustered, taking the bait. "Come on, Travis. You're exactly the kind of guy they'd use. Desperate, gullible. So how much? Half of that $4 million? Or did they lowball you?" $4 million? They told me it was only $750,000. I laughed. "Oh, Travis, did you know? Shane, Tammy's precious son? He's not actually her son. Gary's not the father. It's her ex-husband, the one before Gary." The color drained from his face. "Those two, they've been playing you, Travis. Playing us all for years. My lawyer, the one who got eliminated, he was suing Gary, suing Tammy, going after everything they had. That's why I knew that lawsuit Wanda filed was BS. She didn't want a divorce. She just wanted me back here, where she could control me. And that's when it all clicked. You're just another pawn in their game, Travis. What are they gonna do with you once you've served your purpose?" I don't. My divorce, it messed up their plans. Delayed things. They were gonna kill me, collect the insurance, then disappear. But you eliminate my lawyer? You put their plan back on track. You have a chance to stop them, Travis. To make sure they never hurt anyone again. What's your gut telling you? What's the right thing to do?" "I'm screwed either way," Travis muttered. He looked lost, like a kid who'd just realized he'd been played for a fool. It's never easy, watching someone come to terms with being expendable. "That lawyer of yours, crashing into a tree at 70 miles an hour? That's vehicular manslaughter, Sam. That's life in prison. Manslaughter, I could maybe do 5-10 years, get out early for good behavior. But murder? That's it. Game over. And once I'm gone, they'll just say I snapped. Went crazy over Jenna, didn't know what I was doing. They set me up, Sam. Made me the fall guy. Most accidental death policies, they don't pay out for homicide, Travis. Think about it. What would you do if you were in my shoes?" I'd cut a deal. Tell them everything. Hope they go easy on me. At least I get to see those bitches go down." He set the gun on the table, his hand shaking. "Call the cops, Sam. Turn around, Travis. They're right behind you." Cassie watched Mark pace back and forth, his phone pressed to his ear, his face grim. He'd told her Sam was at Ellie's, that the cops were watching the place. She was worried. This late-night call, it couldn't be good. She put the kettle on and started making hot chocolate. Mark hung up the phone, a slow smile spreading across his face. He looked relieved. "Your dad," he pulled it off, Cassie. "Talked Travis down. Got him to basically confess everything. Undercover cops, they were listening in at the time, and got it all on video." How did he do that?" Cassie asked, stunned. "He told Travis things he didn't know. About Shane, about how Wanda and Tammy had used everyone. I think he convinced Travis that the insurance wouldn't pay out for murder. That's what I did. Even I wasn't sure about that, but it was enough. Gave Travis just enough doubt to choose a lesser evil, instead of throwing his life away. Aunt Ellie always said your dad was quick on his feet. But this? What does this mean for Mom and Tammy?" Cassie asked, her voice shaking. "If Travis agrees to testify, they're going down, Cassie. Arson, manslaughter, conspiracy to commit murder. The DA, he's going after them for everything." Cassie grabbed her phone, dialed Jenna's number. They made a plan. Ellie would watch the kids for a few days. Jenna was catching the first flight out in the morning. Cassie would meet her at the airport. She filled Kara in, and by the time Mark was dressed and ready to head to the station, to get a signed statement from Travis, the whole family was buzzing with the news. I slept like the dead that night. Didn't wake up until 8 a.m. First thing I did was call Jake, Asked him if he knew a good handyman. Needed to get the front door fixed. Half an hour later, a guy was there, replacing the lock, installing a brand new door. He was just finishing up when a car pulled into the driveway. Cassie. And Jenna. She jumped out of the car, ran to me, tears streaming down her face. I held her tight, my heart aching. He's all right, Jenna. Travis, he turned himself in. They arrested him last night. He was never gonna hurt me. Mark had everything under control. Why didn't you call me? Why did I have to hear it from Cassie? It was almost 2 a.m. by the time the cops left. I figured I'd call you this morning. I didn't want you to worry. I held her close, my voice low. Jenna, I promise. I will never put myself in that kind of danger again. Jenna practically leapt out of the car and into my arms. She was shaking, tears streaming down her face. That's when it hit me, how terrified she must have been. They got him, Jenna. Last night. Travis, he's in custody. Turned himself in. Mark and his guys, they were watching the house. I was never in any real danger. Then why didn't you call me? Why did I have to hear it from Cassie? It was almost 2 in the morning when the police finally left. I was gonna call you today. Honestly, I didn't want you to worry. I pulled her close, kissed her hair. I promise, Jenna, I will never put myself in that kind of danger again. Never. Once the handyman was gone, we locked up the house, loaded Jenna's luggage into my truck, and drove into town. Headed to Mel's. Needed a good, strong cup of coffee. When we walked in, Kara and Savannah were already there, with Mom and Dad. Jake, he had his staff push a couple of tables together, so we could all sit. Everyone welcomed Jenna like she was family, which, of course, she was. Jake brought us coffee, extra strong. Then the food arrived, pancakes, eggs, bacon, the works. We were starved. Mom and Dad, they were thrilled to hear about Carson and Hunter. Jenna showed them pictures, told them how we'd named the boys after my grandfathers. Cassie and Kara chimed in, told them all about how they'd found me, about Ellie. We were still catching up when Mark walked in. He looked exhausted. They've got them both, Sam, Wanda and Tammy. Travis sang like a canary. Confessed to everything, even told them about the plan to kill his own father. He's gonna be charged with arson and manslaughter, but only if he testifies against them. Wanda and Tammy are looking at 3 counts of grand larceny, 2 counts of conspiracy to commit murder, fraud, the whole 9 yards. He took a deep breath, then smiled. The DA, he's meeting with the judge who handled your divorce. I want to get it finalized ASAP. He's taking all the paperwork to him personally. Your original divorce papers, everything. Hopes the judge, once he sees the whole picture, will waive Wanda's signature, the waiting period, the whole bit. Issue the divorce decree today. Jenna's eyes were wide. Are you saying that Sam and we can finally get married? That's what the DA is hoping for, yeah. Mark grinned. Jenna, I think maybe it's time I bought you a proper engagement ring. I said, squeezing her hand. And maybe I'll finally get around to asking you to marry me. For real this time. Everyone at the table started whooping and hollering. Jenna, she just stared at me, tears welling up in her eyes. I knew she believed it would happen eventually, but I guess she hadn't expected it today. Mom and Dad, they made us promise to come over for dinner that night. We spent the afternoon packing up Ellie's things. Around 5:30, we headed over to my folks' place. Mom and Dad, they had a million questions for Jenna. She told them about her life, about how I'd rescued her from a bad marriage, thanks to Ellie. We were still laughing when Mark and Cassie pulled up. Mark was holding a manila envelope. Came through, Sam. Judge signed it. You're officially a free man. He handed me the envelope. It felt good. Real good. Jenna got a chance to talk to Mom and Dad about the boys, about our life together. You two should get married. Before you head back. Mom suggested. Dad, he winked at Mark, grabbed a couple of beers from the fridge. Come on, boys. Let's give the ladies some space. Got some catching up to do. We retreated to the den. Word's gotten out about Wanda, Sam. The DA's office, they're getting calls. People coming forward with information. Turns out, what we knew, it was just the tip of the iceberg. Wanda and Tammy, they were involved in all kinds of shady stuff. Looks like the mayor's going down too. Whole damn town's about to get flipped upside down. What about Wanda's lawyer? The common law one? How deep is he in this? I asked. He'll probably lose his license. But he'll be taking care of the kids. They haven't found anything linking him to Wanda and Tammy's crimes. He was just blinded by love, I guess. Or lust. Or whatever the hell it was. Anyone called Ellie? Cassie asked. Jenna's dad, he wears a size 6.5 ring, in case you were wondering. Mark grinned. An hour later, Mark and I were at the mall. He picked out a new wedding set for Cassie, and I found the perfect ring for Jenna, a 3-stone beauty, just her style. We got back to my folks' place just as everyone was moving into the living room. The place was packed, we had to bring in chairs from the kitchen. Dad, he insisted Jenna take his favorite armchair. Mom, she knew something was up, watched us like a hawk. I took a deep breath, walked over to where Jenna was sitting, and got down on one knee. The room went silent. Jenna, will you marry me? She was completely speechless. Tears filled her eyes, and her lips trembled as she finally whispered. Of course. The party was on. Time for me to catch up on 7 years of missed celebrations with my son. Dad announced, raising his glass. Jenna, Art, congratulations. This is the perfect way to start things off. Mark drove Jenna and me back to Ellie's. We spent Thursday packing, tying up loose ends. The weight of it all, the worry, the fear, it finally started to lift. Friday morning, we went to City Hall, got our marriage license. Jenna tried on Cassie's wedding dress, it fit perfectly. Jake agreed to be my best man, and Kara would be Jenna's maid of honor. The DA himself offered to perform the ceremony. Jenna insisted I buy a suit. There was no way she was letting me get married in jeans. Sunday afternoon, my parents' backyard. The whole family was there. Even Wanda and Tammy's dad showed up. We said our vows, and made it official. Told everyone we didn't want any gifts. But Wanda's father pulled me aside, handed me a thick envelope. This isn't a wedding gift, Sam. Consider it an early inheritance, he said, a twinkle in his eye. The rest of my estate, it's going to your daughters. They deserve it. Everyone had their phones out, recording the ceremony, sending videos to Ellie. Someone asked about our honeymoon plans. Honeymoon? Jenna laughed. After everything we've been through, well, once Ellie gets settled in at the new place, we're taking the kids to Disney World. A week in Florida, a week in California. Because family, that's what it's all about, isn't it? Before we left the next morning, I pulled Jenna aside, handed her an envelope. Inside was a bank note for $100,000. And a handwritten note. Thank you for helping to fix karma. I always suspected those two had something to do with their mother's death. I'll enjoy watching them get what they deserve. And so will my granddaughters. Jenna slipped the envelope into her purse, didn't say a word. We hugged everyone goodbye, then piled into the U-Haul. As we pulled out of the driveway, I looked at Jenna. She was smiling, her eyes shining. We were finally free. As Samuel Riley closes the chapter on a past filled with betrayal and deceit, he steps into a future where love, family, and redemption take center stage. From the dark shadows of his old life to the bright promise of a new beginning, Samuel's journey reminds us that no matter how far we run, the truth will always find us. But with courage and determination, even the darkest paths can lead to the light. Thanks for joining us on this emotional roller coaster. We hope Samuel's story inspires you to face your own challenges with strength and hope. Until next time, take care and remember, every ending is just a new beginning.